We are going to do the PowerPoint slides first. Boom. All right, so there is absolutely nobody in here with us on Zoom, so that's exciting. What if you join the Zoom? You can't because it will screech at us. Like, it'll be real bad. All right, you guys can, so because you are 11th graders, and because, here's the real deal. This is my first time actually teaching 11th grade, this class. So I don't have like notes set up for you guys. So because you're 11th graders, that's what we're going to go with, not because it's the first time I've taught it. That's really the reason. I don't have actual like fill in the blank notes or anything for that for you guys. But taking notes would probably be very, very beneficial to you as a student, because since we are all online, our tests are going to be online. And if you are taking your test at home, then there's not really anything I can do to stop you from looking at your notes while you take my tests. Make sense?
So are you going
We're not cheating. We are creatively preparing for a test. There's no way to stop it. There's no way. Well, also your assessment for this one is a project anyway. So I mean, you are gonna have a quiz on this stuff, but the assessment's actually like a project that you do. It's way more fun than an actual test. Sorry. Sorry, I'm way more fun than just taking tests.
I don't think our group members are on that. Our other two group members are on forward.
Yeah, I noticed that on the, are you talking about the progressive movement assignment? Yeah, I've picked up on that. I'll tell you, James, we'll pull you in onto the boat, but you have to stay like in the life raft for a little bit. No, just kidding. I'll hook you up with everything that you need to do. I'm not gonna make you catch up work. So just pick up wherever we are right now. Yeah, but you and Caesar got in early though, didn't you? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Caesar, you have to do all the work.
My name is Soren.
Your name is not Soren. I have picked up on this. If I do call you Soren, I do apologize. Okay, so this week we are talking about the progressive movement as part of the Gilded Age. So we've been talking about the Gilded Age as a whole. So we talked about the Industrial Revolution, which I know that you guys have not been in here, but I know that you have all been watching the videos that I have painstakingly prepared for you. Yes. All right, so you have watched the Industrial Revolution video where I explain all of the things about the Industrial Revolution. We have talked about the labor movement, and we talked about that one just a little bit and briefly because the Zoom screwed up on us out that day. And then last week we talked about immigration, which is why I know none of your names. That was really poor planning on my part. All right, what we're going to talk about today is the progressive movement. What does it mean? What do you guys think it means, like progressive? Man, you got to pull your mask down because I can't hear you. In a way, but we've technically moved out across the country at this point. Like we are spread from sea to shining sea here. So what else could it mean?
Like moving forward with your ideas.
All right, what do you mean moving forward with your ideas? What? Yeah. Okay. So what is? Yeah, kind of. What is progress? Kind of, but kind of also not. It's improvement, right? So that's what progress is. The progressive movement, we still have a progressive movement right now. The progressive movement is, Yeah, so this is going to be progressive as in reforms for industry, reform for, there are going to be some social reforms that we see. These are going to be the big social reforms like women's rights. You're going to see an end to some of the civil rights problems, but that's not going to be fully taken care of until the 1960s. You're going to see immigration rights. You're going to see a lot of improvements, though, in the workplace. All right, so the progressive movement is just this movement of an attempt to improve the lives of everyday people. Okay, because at this time, what time period are we talking about right now? Years. Yeah, very early 1900s. We haven't even hit 1920 yet. We haven't even hit World War I yet, technically. So we are still in, which we kind of dance around it here, but we are still prior to the 1920s. So about, do what? Yeah, no, that's on. We'll get to the Great Depression later on. Yeah, we'll hopefully hit Great Depression in November, but we'll see. Anyway, we're talking about from about 1870 to about 1920. That's our time period right now. So U.S. government, does the U.S. government have a lot to do with the economy right now? No, it is very hands-off economy. Does the U.S. government have a lot to do with regulations in businesses? No, not yet, right? All right, so this is the progressive movement. Let me click on this so it'll actually go forward. Boom. So this is going to be 1900 to 1917 specifically. We're still talking about 1870s to 1920s. All right. Roots of the progressive movement is the first thing. So progressive age is ultimately going to reshape the role of government in our country, and it's going to start off as grassroots movements, okay? If you were a person taking notes, which I would, yet again, recommend. Well, you might not be able to pull up the PowerPoint yet. I don't think I've linked it yet. But I will link it because I'm not that much of a slacker. Anyway, okay. So progressive movement is going to reshape the role of government. What do you guys think is going to happen? What do you think how do you think the roles of government are going to change? Like predicting. Take it ahead. Do what? Yeah, so how do you think the roles of government are going to change? That's a matter of opinion.
So wasn't this like the time when like anti-states were divided because they all wanted different things for their own argument?
That is going to be 1860. That's going to be Civil War. After the Civil War, we kind of take care of that. After Reconstruction, we have a large federal government, and that is kind of, well, it's not really the end of that because we still see the grappling of that right now. But the federal government takes over state governments. Go for it. Yeah.
When did they make the first house?
When did they make the what?
First police officer.
First police officers would have technically been in, do what?
The red coat.
No, you would have had militiamen during the Revolutionary War, which would technically have been police officers. The actual institution began closer to Civil War period, and then you have actual like cops by the time we get to the 1900s.
So now we got cops.
Yeah, we have cops now. We moved away from the original topic, which is how does the government change? States' rights did get moved into the federal government. That's going to be Civil War stuff. No, church never technically had power in the U.S. That's going to be a huge thing. Okay, the big thing to take away from it is the government's going to become more involved in the everyday lives of people. All right, it is going to directly start affecting individual lives. Kind of. All right, so in 1900, the U.S. had 76 million people, mostly in good condition, and they had wealth controlled by a very small minority and the government was uninvolved. All right, that's going to have to change. So if I were taking notes on this, I would say wealth controlled by a small minority and government was uninvolved. And that would be the only two things I would put down for this. A small minority. So you guys know how, like today, you hear about the 1% and all of that, and how we got to tax the 1% and all of that drama. This is where that idea comes from, that idea of the evil head of corporations. That is a carryover from the 1920s. And so because you actually had these people who would technically abuse their workers to make more money. They didn't take care of their workers at this time. All right. So 1% is controlling pretty much everything at this point. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Never mind. Okay, number 2, the dominance of large corporations is going to transform the society and the economy, promoting urbanization. What does urbanization mean? Yeah, turning it into the city. And economic growth, but business cycle fluctuations become increasingly severe. What is a business cycle? Someone who's not had, because you've answered everything so far. What'd you say? Oh, that was. What is a business cycle? What do you think that means? Flow of money. There you go. So it is, think about if we owned a fruit stand, okay? To start off.
Sorry, I can't really see this right now.
Oh, sorry. It's probably my fault too. I would definitely put economic growth and urbanization being promoted, and then business cycle fluctuations are going to become severe. So if we own a fruit stand, all right, when we start off our business, are we going to make a lot of money? No, right? As we become more and more prominent, are we going to start making a bit more money? Yeah. As the season moves along, are we going to make less and less and less money? That's the cycle of business. All right. And then as we get larger and larger and we start employing more and more people and we start pulling from other farms besides just our own, our cycle is going to change, but it's going to continue on. We make a lot of money at this point and then we come back up. And we make a lot of money and then we come back up and we lose money. All right. So it's a business cycle. The thing is that they're going to become severe. Why might business cycles be so severe at this time? It hasn't crashed yet. What did you say? No, not quite. Who has no hand in the economy at this point?
The government.
The government, right? So is there any kind of control over the free market? Okay, no, this is a true free market at this point. We technically have a free market right now, but it is a free market that has regulations to keep the stock market from absolutely collapsing like it did during the Great Depression. What happened here is that you have these extreme ups and then extreme downs because there's no regulation within that free market. So anybody can put something up on the market. Anybody from any country can pour stuff into our markets without any kind of taxes being placed on them. And say that Het, James, Alex, Kieran, Mary Beth, Melody, Mackenzie, and Keegan, all of you guys were like, you know what? We're going to grow corn. We're going to grow a whole lot of corn. And then Caesar, Rodolfo, and John, not Adam, are going to just grow peas. All right? Which one of y'all, which group is going to have a better year? Why the peas? All right, aside from that, why might you three make more money than these guys over here? Yeah, it's just three of you. If you three are the only ones with something on the market, you're going to make more money than the overflow of corn that we have, right? There's no regulation of the government in that, which is it's going to cause the market to have a lot of trouble. All right, another big thing is, not yet. It began in the late 1800s. Yeah, we've already talked about that, so you're good. All right. Greenback Labor Party of the 1870s and 1880s is going to be the Populist Party, and they're going to inspire the progressives. We'll talk about the Populist Party when we get back because they are in and of their own thing, but they tend to be farmers.
So
Yeah, that's a donkey.
I will put the Greenback Labor Party at the time.
Yeah. Just, I mean, abbreviate where you can. He's got a long name. But your populists tend to be more farmers than anything else, just because the Populist Party is going to be it's going to be this weird kind of amalgamation of different groups that come together and say, hey, we as farmers need some kind of protection, and we need some kind of rights, and we need some kind of way to deal with this market. All right.
So would this be, so like the farmers stealing instead of crops?
Were they still doing what with the crops?
Were the farmers stealing instead of stuff back then?
No, they weren't stealing. They were just running into some issues. Hold up. All right. Socialists sought a better life for workers, and socially active, reform-minded women played a large role in the movement. Not socialists like socialism socialists. Socialists in this one instance means people who are looking for social reform. Okay? Not quite too, now there are going to be some socialism tendencies that we see pop up during this time period, such as the creation of unions, such as the creation of a minimum wage and a protection of workers' rights. But it is purely the social reforms to take care of the people at this point. And the reform-minded women are going to play a huge role in that. We're going to see them in several different areas. Where? Yeah. Everybody else is still writing notes. That does look like a face to me. The 1920s are really going to be a lot of fun when we get into them because we'll look at, that's going to be where modernism becomes popular, and modernism is going to be this revolt against everything that, like, it's going to be Pablo Picasso and expressionism. What's the dude that, what is his name? Dali is going to be, he's the one with like the melting clocks and everything. Virginia Woolf becomes popular. The 1920s are really cool. Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'm excited about that. Okay, so progressives fought against monopolies, corruption, government inefficiency, and social injustices. In other words, Gilded Age issues. So these are all the things that we've already talked about. Monopolies are going to be a huge thing. Corruption is going to be a huge thing. And government inefficiency. At this time, we are still technically a very young nation. So we do have to kind of work through the problems of a new government. How are they what? It's the, so this is also like the boom of political cartoons. All right, let's keep going. Ultimate goal is going to be to expand what the federal government is. It's going to use the federal government as an agency of human welfare and reform. This is the first time the government is going to be pushed in this direction. So this is the idea of, so in the Civil War, we fought the idea of federal government versus state government, right? You had this kind of clash of ideas of who gets to decide what things. Federal government technically won the Civil War, so the state governments were forced to take a kind of a secondary stance. States still have certain rights, you know, like states still get to control schooling, who gets to get married, policing licenses, and all of this, but they don't. We haven't yet got to the point where the government is involved in your life of every day. Like today, you cannot do anything that doesn't have some kind of government regulation added to it. All right, the water you drink, the air you breathe, the school buildings you sit in, the clothes you put on, everything that you do has some kind of government entity that's intertwined with the making of it.
Did you say, human welfare and the
Mhm. All right. Who's that in the corner? You guys know? Which one? That's Teddy Roosevelt. Very good. All right. So muckrakers. Do you guys remember what a muckraker is? Have y'all ever talked about muckrakers before? What would you think it is based on people that what? Nah. He actually used it like a curse word. What'd you say? It does sound like somebody who takes care of gross stuff, and it is technically, he's using it as a slur.
Oh, wait, you're the last one. Like, ain't that what a muckraker is?
No,
Is it
Clark.
against progressive people, like a term against progressive people? So like the reform.
So people are like,
People that are going to write about it, technically. So your muckrakers are going to be people, I think it gives you that. No, it doesn't. All right, so progressive writers are going to be called muckrakers because they're going to expose the evils within the Gilded Age. So it's called, do we know why it's called the Gilded Age?
No.
Would you have a guess? What does it mean to be gilded? What do you think of when you think of the word gilded?
Higher ups, like important people who like run everything.
Kind of. What did you say, James? No, not guilt like not like you've been guilted. It's gilded, like you gild the lilies. I think that's from the Bible. No, I've never actually heard it used in that way.
Like we hear the term gilded.
Yeah, gilded just means it's got like it's like it's encased in gold or something like that, right? It's very shiny or nice on top. It's called the Gilded Age because it's shiny and nice and everything looks great on top, but underneath that first layer, it's absolute crap because people are being not being taken care of. There is extreme poverty. There are people living in the streets. There's corruption running rampant and all that. So that's why we call it the Gilded Age. Muckrakers are the ones who are going to kind of peel away that top layer and expose the evils that are going on underneath all of this corruption and everything.
So what the government was doing.
The government didn't have any point in it. Like this is the corporations that were sweeping things under the rug, technically. Yeah, and technically they weren't even sweeping it under the rug. They were just like, they're just like, it is what it is kind of thing. You know what I mean? They didn't necessarily mind it being common knowledge that they were abusing their workers, that you had to work long hours. It was just like, you have to do this to make a living. People who are progressives say the government needs to be the one who steps in and takes care of the people because that's what the role of government is supposed to be. All right? And the muckrakers are the people who are going to expose that. This is Theodore Roosevelt. What do you call it? Roosevelt? No, Roosevelt is a progressive. He is going to be someone who he's going to be someone who's going to fight for reform in some of these areas. He's also going to fight against it, the other way. There are in the body politic, economic, and social, and many grave evils, and there is urgent necessity for the sternest war upon them. What is he talking about? Yeah, there are bad things going on, right? Why? How would you wage a stern war against that, though? You have to expose it somehow, right? So you publish it in a newspaper, you publish books, you get the word out, right? There should be relentless exposure of an attack upon every evil man, whether politician or businessman, every evil practice, whether in politics, in business, or in social life. I hail as a benefactor every writer or speaker, every man who, on the platform or in book, magazine, or newspaper, with merciless severity makes such attack, provided always that the attack is absolutely truthful. So he's saying he's going to be behind this, but he's behind the idea of it, but it has to be done correctly. It has to be done in the benefit of the people. So, all right, in absence of government regulation, the progressive writers are going to expose corruption of trusts. They are called the muckrakers. All right? Yes. How do they have a what? Yeah, they had so the government at this point is still that kind of like overarching term. They are not involved in the lives of people. They are there to uphold the Constitution and make sure people have their freedom of speech, freedom of press and all of that stuff, freedom to bear arms and everything outlined in the Constitution specifically. They do not take care of the people at this point. So Teddy Roosevelt's going to be one of the ones who comes in and tries to either, huh? That's when, yeah, okay, that's when the real cops are going to come in. All right, in the early 1900s, you had popular cheap magazines that are going to dig up dirt on the trusts. So think like your National Enquirers of today, right? The ones that are like way, way, way outlandish that you see like the Queen of England is actually an alien or something like that. The ones that you see the headlines and you're like, oh, cheap magazines like that. But instead of it being absolute and total crap, it was real live stuff. And what? I guess it would depend upon your viewpoint on that one. But yeah, kind of in that similar way. You know what I mean? Like it would be available to absolutely everybody. That's why it's cheap. Does that make sense?
Why do we say these kinds of money
Because they're monopolies. They're putting on all that money. Yeah, that's the point of it. Because like monopolies are greedy and they have all that money to themselves because they are like the sack that hold the money because they're holding all that money for themselves.
But okay.
So I do want to say something before we jump back into it because you bring up a very interesting point about monopolies being evil. So today's viewpoint on what a monopoly is, we know that monopolies are bad, right? Why are monopolies bad?
Because like, if they start raising the price, you can't get it anywhere else.
Right. Yeah, kind of like Google. There's only one source where everything is coming from, right? There's no competition there. All right. Well, now Walmart has competition. Dollar General is a competition for Walmart. You know what I mean? So what?
No, I think Walmart's competition for Target is Target.
Target is expensive.
That's why Camden.
So yes, but we don't have any kind of way to combat it yet. Think about but it is all in the media. So it's not technically a commodity that we have, but it is something, because you don't technically buy the images that you watch on television, right? You do pay for a subscription service like the Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or whatever, but it's not necessarily like a good commodity. You know what I mean? Like I buy food, I eat the food. I buy a train ticket so I can go somewhere. So you do have this monopoly in Google because we don't use anything else but Google, right? Nobody ever says, I'm going to go Yahoo that, right? I'm going to go Google it. No. Nah. Maybe Bing would be a decent, but not really. So Google is a monopoly on search engines, but also Amazon is kind of a monopoly as well, but you can't really do anything about Amazon legally because Amazon is like a collective company. Anybody and everybody can sell something on Amazon technically. You just have to be able to provide the product reliably. Does that make sense?
Could you technically call a phone company a monopoly?
Phone companies were a monopoly, and they got broken apart. Theodore Roosevelt's going to take care of that because you had what is the big one? No, no, it is today. No, it's what AT&T became. It's Bell South. That's what it was. Bell South was a big one, and it got taken over and broken up. And AT&T just recently took over Bell South, like in my lifetime. So yeah, phone companies are technically a commodity because you are buying a service, if that makes sense. Television isn't a service. And if you think about Disney, like think about what Disney doesn't own. That's a far shorter list than what Disney does own, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is technically a service. If you pay for a service and that is something is provided for you, that is a good. So technically television is one, but it technically also is not. So we don't have a way to break that monopoly yet. Sorry, that was a very big tangent, and I forgot my original point, so we're just going to keep going. All right. If you're interacting, we're square. All right. In 1894, Henry Lloyd, don't remember his middle name, exposed corruption of the Standard Oil, and it's going to be in a book that he writes called Wealth Against Commonwealth. That's going to be an important book, okay? Standard Oil has, well, somebody besides me, who would like to read the As the Standard Oil part? Go for it, Alex.
As the Standard Oil article is planning, the armory of every person willing to fight for industrial freedom, so wealth against commonwealth in later years became the great storehouse of information to which numbers of able campaigners habitually resorted for their attacks. Probably millions of men read or heard Mr. Lloyd's ideas without being aware of his real authorship. He desired that his countrymen should be informed of the existing conditions, but not that he himself should gain the pain of report.
Thank you, Randy. All right. What do you guys think the title Wealth Against Commonwealth means? Yeah, pretty much. So it's wealth against the wealth of common people, but it's not necessarily just wealth as in money. It would also be commonwealth as in like common welfare. Does that make sense? All right, so he's going to be one of the first ones that really exposes the inadequacies of these large corporations. He does look like a monopoly dude. That'd be a fun tidbit. I bet he is. Skip that one because it's basically the same thing. And we're not going to really talk about it. All right, how the other half lives is about NYC, which is New York, slum conditions. What is a slum? Yeah, you live in like a rundown place. We don't see nearly as many like actual slums in the U.S. as much because we do have certain regulations against that kind of thing. But if you ever go out of the country, if you go, do what? India would be a big. Detroit doesn't technically count because, like I said, it's not a true slum. Brazil would be a good example. You think about Rio de Janeiro that has this huge, like, bustling city full of very, very rich and wealthy and okay people. Do what? Spain's okay, actually. Spain has like a few areas that are extremely poor, but Spain is technically one of our first world countries. Russia doesn't really count because we don't really, yeah, there's a lot of secrecy in Russia, but they are technically a first world. North Korea doesn't count because they do technically, they don't have slums, but they, just don't have. No, not Japan. Think like Brazil, think like Venezuela, think like the Dominican Republic. I'll bring some pictures from the Dominican. But the slums are like, yeah, basically, it's like whatever you have to put together, that's what your house is built out of. So it can be. Yeah, I think the Philippines have one, but Brazil is probably one of the better examples because it would be like what New York was at this time. You have this huge city structure, but it's also backed up by these just gigantic areas of poverty. No, I've never been to the Bahamas. I've been to the Dominican, and that is the only airplane ride I have ever been on. It was not fun. All right, so these are just the pictures of the slums in New York. Those are children, not many people. Yeah, that's like Oliver Twist kind of stuff. All right, so you see how it's like a shanty? Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, it's just like, it's extremely, extremely, yeah, but it's, I'm trying to curb the vocabulary for it. It's extremely, unsafe is a good word. There we go. It's very run down. It's very, ramshackle, put together and all of that. Yeah. Like what? Did you say like Teslas? No, not like Teslas. Yeah, they are. No, not like Teslas. Teslas are way nicer than that. I can't believe you said Tesla. Nah, I don't. The Financer and the Titan are two other pretty important books. I don't want to talk about those all that much because they're not really that. Well, no, they're very important because they're historical, but they're not as prominent, I guess you could say. The Shame of Cities that is an important one. It is going to reveal the corrupt alliance between the business and the government. So this is where you have people paying for votes. So if we all live in New York City and Caesar's going to be like the big businessman, and he is going to own pretty much like half of New York City, and James, you're going to be our government officials, and you two have basically an agreement that says all of the people who live in Caesar's area are going to vote you into power every single time. But because of that, you have to kind of turn your head away from some of the more shady things that are breaking the law that he's doing. And you also have to reject any kind of social reform. And because of that, because of Caesar and James and their deal, the rest of us are living in the slums, in the shade of town. Yeah. Yeah, we all work for, well, we don't necessarily all work for you. We're all kind of just in your area. We're not going to read all that mess. All right, this is Ida Tarbell. She wrote an expose against Standard Oil, which is it has a monopoly over oil production and the sale of it. And she is going to be the one who, like, completely and totally dismantles it. Ida Tarbell's book was huge. It blew it up. I don't know. Nah, I would. Because look, okay, this is y'all are bad about getting me on tangents already. This is going to be a trouble. Like, think about, like, the flame risk, though. Like, if one part of that gets caught on fire, you done.
Maybe it's like
That's why you make fire.
Is one of us going to read this or are we going to?
No, we're going to skip by it because it is a lot to say, and I ain't about it. But
He looks.
He is. All right. So at this point, who elects the senators?
People.
Not the people, the government. All right, your government leaders elect the senators for their state. How many senators are in each state?
Three.
Two, just two. All right. So one of the big things that is going to happen is people are going to say the senators are supposed to represent us as people of this community. The government says no, 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 no. The senators represent business interests. That's why there's only two. Who do the senators really represent? Yes. So do you think that there is room for a lot of corruption in this area? Yeah, how so? Think about Caesar and James.
Because like people are buying.
Yeah.
People are like looking at it. It doesn't really matter about corruption.
Right, okay, so James, say that, Alex, you're now the boss. All right, Alex, you are the governor of all of New York. You are our mayor, okay? You're gonna pick your senators, right? All right, Caesar is making a whole lot of money, right? He's paying off James to keep James quiet and to keep James happy, right? He's also going to ensure that James continues getting into office. James is going to talk to you and say, hey man, I got a little investment that I can help you out with. And if you will ensure that me and Caesar get to keep up our little business going, then we'll take care of you. And you're going to say, right, all right. Now let's say that, I'm sorry, women weren't exactly in office, but we're going to use you guys anyway. Let's say Mary Beth and Melody are running against each other as senators, okay? James, you're going to choose which one is going to be the senator. Not James, Alex, you're going to choose who the senator is, all right? Melody is a progressive. She's like, we have got to take care of these people. Social reform is going to be huge. We've got to do this at a government level. Mary Beth is perfectly willing to take a little side cut of that money and look the other way. Who are you going to put in business?
How big is the site?
Well, it's enough. Like, don't you have a deal with them?
Yeah, you have a deal with them.
But they already gave me like.
Yeah, but
No.
It's more bread.
It's constant payment. You have to protect them for them to pay you.
Nobody cares about those kids.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
So, but okay, are you going to put into office Melody, who is going to come in and say, y'all got to stop this mess and it's going to break the party? Y'all going to put Mary Beth in and give her a little bit of a side cut so y'all can all keep making money?
More bread.
Yeah, more bread.
All right, people of New York, how we doing?
More bread.
More bread.
All right, my average people, my Mackenzie's, Keegan's, Kieran's, Het, Rodolfo, almost called David again, and John. How are y'all doing?
More bread.
Now y'all ain't getting anything. Y'all living in the streets. Yeah, we're kind of mad, right? We're upset because they are living the life and we are living in the slums, right? We want to get out of that. And the best way to do that is to say, we've got to get people like Melody into office, all right? So who should be able to choose the senators? Right. That's going to be a huge, huge thing that is going to go with it.
In any business, did people ever like pretend to be a part of the deal and then like not when they get into office? Kind of like a fake out?
You think that was Obama?
So like Caesar is not just a businessman. He is also what we call a boss. All right.
So like, if
So-
he did that, then he was automatic.
Caesar actually has, living in the streets of New York, he's got Het and Rodolfo over there, and maybe John. John kind of goes back and forth on it, but those two, they're going to make sure that anybody who gets into office and tries to do something against Caesar's interests sleep with the fishes.
Dang, you're gonna wipe me out?
No, you're fine. Melanie's,
Well, yeah. But I was saying if I take the.
We're hoping- we're hoping you survive this one, all right? All right, so at this time, and this is gonna be, I think I'm probably getting ahead of ourselves here.
So couldn't like people
Yeah.
in like gang territory and stuff like that, if they even have that, like couldn't they control these as easily as well?
Well, Mafia is not technically gonna come up until the like 20s, 30s, and 40s, 60s, and 70s. It really kind of is gonna depend. You still technically have mob and mafia today. It's just under a different kind of format. You know what I mean? Anyway, so at this point, people don't have their income, so like the money that you make every year, that's not taxed. Okay, what you make is what you make. So if I work for Caesar and I work in like, let's say he runs a shirt factory that's like a cover up for some of his other businesses. All right, I work in that shirt factory and I make $12 a week. That's still okay. You're paying your, all right. That's still pretty good. No, that's awful. Okay, that's cool. Let's say about $8 a week. That still puts me at like probably middle class. So I'm not living in this slums. I've got a tenement house and all of that. Yeah, I'm doing okay. All right. So if I live in Caesar's area of New York, I make $8 a week. That $8 is the $8 that I get every single week. There's no government tax on it, right? All right. So what's going to happen is the government's going to come in and say, well, hold up. We kind of need some money to be able to fund these social programs that y'all want. So we're going to have to make a deal. All right. So yeah, you guys can elect your senators, but we get to tax your income so that we can pay for these reforms that are inevitably going to come through. So that's going to be your 16th and 17th Amendments. I just got way ahead of us, but here we are. Ray Baker is going to do following the color line, which is going to deal with Black illiteracy. If you were African American at this time and you could not read, you could not vote. If you were African American at this time, there were still a lot of hoops you had to jump through to vote anyway. Do what? Never mind. Okay, probably a good thing I didn't get it. This is where the Jim Crow laws are going to be coming in and are extremely prominent. And then John I can't say his name, Spargo's Bitter Cry of Children is going to be against child labor. Did we do none of you guys had children who died as immigrants, right?
No.
I think that was in my other class. Well, one of them, the children lost a leg and then eventually died. No, she was a child. Yeah.
No, I feel like somebody did.
Somebody.
I lost a kid to illness when I lost 5 more.
Oh, okay. So she lost. Okay, I meant like children actually working in the factories. So like if you had a kid who was working in the factory, they worked in very, very awful conditions. Like think like Oliver Twist and Charles Dickens and all that good stuff. No, I don't think so. I think he's helping them out. I hope he's not about to beat them with it. They worked especially well with in sewing factories and cloth factories because looms have little small parts that their little hands could get a hold of.
That's how a lot of people
So this is a family. This is a single family, and every single one of them, down to the youngest, worked in the same factory. All right. So imagine being 7 years old and having a full-time job.
I think it's 4.
That young man.
I wanted to make money so bad. When I was like 7, I wanted to drop so bad. That was so bad.
Yeah, but then you get to the point where you're 16 and you realize, oh.
Well, I like making money. That makes me really happy.
That's fair. I like making money too, but you know, working for a living is tiring. The what? Did you say, did you have to call people like that boomers? No, boomers are gonna be from the 40s and 50s. We still have boomers with us.
Yeah,
These people are, generally speaking, not with us anymore, with very, very few exceptions.
So weren't there a lot of kids also who like worked in coal mines?
Well, that's called black lung. I mean, you still have that as a problem. Do what? A lot of European countries are like this. No, I'm sorry, not European. Asian countries are like this.
I heard they put up nets around the factory. They try to get most of them put nets around.
That's in that's in Japan. They do that. They do have a very high suicide rate in Japan because there's such a emphasis on success.
That's not just in like factories.
Why is everything North Korea with you? Somebody said North Korea. Oh, sorry, it was on that side. It was the male side of the classroom. Yeah, I'd like to keep my life, so no.
I don't even know
I'm not letting you play any of our field trips. All right, so Thomas Lawson is going to attack the railroad robber barons. These are the people who are over the railroading industry. They are going to be the ones that have monopolies. They are going to control the rail lines. They are going to control the production of everything that leads up to a rail line. All right? They really are. Like, you think about our political cartoons today, these days, you see a really good one every here and there, but they were really, really good in the 20s. Muckrakers believe that American democracy and the creation of a larger government and more democracy is the only way to handle all of these problems. This is the what? Never mind, don't say that about it. All right, so progressives are going to try to make America's democracy more democratic and have first infiltrated and influenced local and state governments so that they can start making gains on a federal level. So you've got to start small and then go up. So we've got to start by getting James out of office, and then we can get Alex out of office, and then we can get Mary Beth out of office, and maybe we can put Melody in office. All right? No, Libertarian is a fairly new party that started with the it was like an offset of the Tea Party movement back in the 2008 campaign, I think. But Libertarians are going to pop up later on. Progressives are going to be mostly our middle class people. Very few people living in the actual slums are going to be able to focus on anything other than survival, right? So if you, so like me working in the shirtwaist factory that Caesar owns, making $8 an hour, I'm doing all right. All right, me and all my kids and my husband may work all the time, but we have what we need to survive. Whereas, Mackenzie, sorry, you are going to be our slum dweller. So Mackenzie, on the other hand, she's just trying to survive, right? So does she care about politics right now? No, you have to care about surviving before you can care about politics. Me, on the other hand, I care about politics because I'm living that middle class life. They probably will, but we're gonna hope Melody, she's gonna survive today. All right, they're going to seek. So, okay, what the progressives are going to do, they're going to start on the lower level, like I just said, okay? Mackenzie doesn't necessarily care, but if me and Keegan, we decide, all right, we're going to start a movement. All right, we're going to start going out to the neighborhoods and talking to all these other people. Me and Keegan talk to Kieran, me and Keegan talk to John, and we get John on our side. And we start saying, look, these are some serious problems that we have. We've got to be able to vote and be able to put people that we need in office, and we've got to break this corruption somehow. All right, so they start at that smaller level. All right, and they start pushing people into votes. All right, referendum is that people should vote on the laws that affect them. That's how, I hate to do this one because it's such a, it's always going to be a hot topic issue, but like Obamacare, right? Obamacare, the big argument with that was it should be voted on by the people, not by the government, right? Because the government doesn't necessarily get affected by it, the people do. And the government is the one that pushed it through. That's what a referendum would be like. It would be like the healthcare systems that we all have to participate in. We should be able to have a say in that as opposed to just letting the government have it. That's that idea. Does that make sense? Okay. Recall is to take back bad officials. So we want to recall James, we want to recall Alex, and we want to recall Mary Beth because they are crooked. Progressives are going to want to use secret ballots to undermine Caesar's ability to set his mafia men on us, I guess. So if me and Keegan and Kieran and John are like, all right, we've been pushing this movement. We've even gone and talked to people in the slums like Mackenzie and Mackenzie's friends and family. We've started this, we've got people on our side now. Well, if we go in and we vote and Het and Rodolfo are chilling out there watching us vote, you think they're going to report back to Caesar? You think they're going to try to scare us into voting the way they want us to vote?
Yeah.
All right. So they're going to scare us into always voting for James. All right. They're going to scare us into always voting for Alex. And then Alex gets to choose our senator. All right. So a secret ballot is going to allow John to say, you know, I'm really kind of more afraid of Caesar than I am willing to work for him. Money's not that good. So I really kind of want to vote James out of office so that maybe we'll be okay. All right, that's where the idea of secret ballots come in. We still have secret ballots. You do not tell people who you vote for, all of that, while you are there because it keeps the corruption down. It keeps ballots from being lost, and it keeps ballots from being swayed, I guess. Like, you know, like you can't think about when election time comes, you will not have people able to stand right outside the voting offices and say, hey, you should vote for this person. They have to stand so far away, and they have to stand, they have to campaign away from the voting buildings because as you go in to vote, you have a right to your vote and to your privacy. That's where this comes from. And they also want to directly elect senators. So we want to be able to put Melody in office and cut James, no, not cut James, cut Alex's ability off.
I feel like there might have been a lot of ways around that though, because obviously if you were African American, you got watched.
Yes, and that is, and if you're a woman, we don't vote anyway right now. We're assuming that everybody in this room is a male at the moment. But yes, African Americans will still be discriminated against, but in some cities they could vote, and they could vote privately. But it would have to be, it wasn't anywhere in the South. 17th Amendment is going to be provided so that we can elect our senators. It's going to be a trade-off with the government. We, as the people, get to vote for our senators. We get to put the people in office who represent us, but the government then gets to tax us on our incomes. I talked about that. We haven't really talked about this. So progressive cities run by experts who are going to be like people who are socialists, but not like socialists like socialism, socialists as in they are experts in the social condition, how to change that social condition. And they're trying to get politics out of the idea of your manufacturers. So we're trying to keep Caesar from getting political. Urban reforms are going to tackle slumlords, juvenile delinquency, prostitution, all the things that make a slum a slum. We're going to skip that because we've already talked about them. You're going to have certain governors who are going to be for progressive reform because they see the problems that are happening. And you're going to get a lot of progressive people interested in this change by attacking child labor and attacking women's rights. So this is, we're going to call this Caesar's shirt company for the moment. It burned in 1911 and it killed 146 of the workers who lived or who were working in the building. Which, you know, that's a terrible accident, right? There's no way to have controlled the fire. Nobody actually started the fire. It's an accident. What made it a problem is that the doors were locked. So the workers couldn't get out. The doors had been locked by the factory owners and the people working for it. So the people who were inside the factory were basically murdered. Is that a what on the dude's head? No, I think that's his hair. He's just supposed to represent like a scummy dude. Mueller versus Oregon is an important case because it is going to be him saying, look, and this is going to sound terrible, all right? As women, this sounds awful, but it is a very, very, very important point that he's making, okay? Because if we want to reform the workforce, if we want to reform so that nothing like the shirtwaist factory going up in flames happens again, we have to attack it from the standpoint of we got to protect children and we've got to protect women. Okay, his point is that women as mothers and as caregivers have more important duties that they have to be able to perform after coming back from work. So if you are this is real life. Sorry, you guys, this is real life. If you are a female and you are a mother, who's going to take more care of the child? Right. Is that necessarily like in every single case? No, especially not today. But in this time, it was the mother's duty. All right. Mom took care of the kids. Dad had to do more of the hard, intensive labor. Okay. So what he said is that a woman spends a long time on her feet at work, repeating tedious work from day to day, and can have negative effects on their bodies. And healthy mothers are essential to producing offspring. So the physical well-being of women is probably like the most important thing because we have to have mothers to raise our children if we want to succeed as a population. Make sense? So they attacked it from that standpoint. And it ended up being extremely successful because the Supreme Court upheld laws restricting the workday to 10 hours. They are going to, this goes on into prohibition, but they are going to support that. They are going to support the right of women to vote in 1919. And they are going to support the ending of child labor. All right, so progressives also supported prohibition. And that, what is prohibition? No more getting drunk. Yeah, you can't have alcohol anymore. So they said no alcohol, period. Like, the what? No. This was against the law at this time.
I saw a
Yeah.
video where like there was a thing actually invented a type of gun so that people could do it after they had alcohol.
Y'all, probably like the most ingenuity of any movement is going to come from the prohibition movement. All right, you have bootleggers who are going to create NASCAR and who are going to create special compartments in their vehicles so that they can run liquor around the country. You have speakeasies that are going to pop up, which if you've never been, you guys have obviously never been to a speakeasy if you're underage. But if you ever get the chance to go to one after you are of the appropriate age, they're so cool. They are so very cool. But you would have to have like the code word and all that to get into these places. You have people who start rebelling against this idea and start dressing very provocatively and start drinking in the speakeasies and you're going to see jazz music develop within these areas, especially in the African American community. You're going to see artists really expanding within these areas. So a lot of ingenuity that we think of today come from people wanting to have alcohol but not being able to because it's a progressive movement. It's really, really interesting. This is Carrie Nation. She is going to be the head of the movement against alcohol. She would literally go into bars with an axe and like hack up the bars, like the bars, actual bar, and run people out. Why do you think the progressives were so against alcohol? No, that's not. They actually had very good reasoning behind it. No, they had good reasoning. Do what? It does. Well, the crime rate actually goes up because of because of the illegality of alcohol. So it's actually going to negatively impact. Yeah. But what happens to men, generally men at the time, men who work long hours and just need to let off some steam? Where would they most likely go?
Oh, so like the women don't get any help at home, and they're basically left to suffer with
Yes, so you had a lot of poverty coming from men going to these bars and kind of letting off steam there, spending money there, leaving the wives at home after they've also gone to work to take care of the children. You also have a lot of spousal abuse. You have a lot of corruption and crime that is going to pop up out of that, all right? But the progressives say, we got to put an end to that. That's a social ill. We've got to go in and be able to take care of that. I don't know the answer to that question, and I wouldn't answer it if I did.
Also, because like alcohol was really expensive back then, right?
It depended.
Well, depending on like the type of alcohol, because like that's also like spending money.
Yeah, and that was another big part of it too. They were misspending money. All right, that's the end of our progressive movement PowerPoint. On Schoology, I want to show you guys this before class is over. So you guys do have an assignment for the progressive movement. And I'll post this PowerPoint and this video in a folder over here as well. So here is your progressive movement. Shoot, there we go. Pages and everything. So these are like the book pages. If you want to go in and read them for a little bit of extra information, you can while you're doing this particular project. They're all here, and because they uploaded so funky, I also uploaded them like this as well, just in case. So those are the pages you have. The actual assignment is right here. And 2 people have turned it in. How about that? No, maybe the actual assignment is over here. Yeah, I don't know what I did. Can you tell it was like midnight on Sunday night when I was putting this together? It was. There we go. Okay, so this week we're discussing federal and social reform movements of the progressive movement. We're going to tackle federal reforms as a class. I'm not going to do social reforms on you over fall break. You're welcome. Do what? You do have a project, but I'm not going to make you do. I was going to do social reforms as well, but we're just not going to do that. We'll talk about that when we get back. So you have your house group that is assigned one of these 8 reform movements. Okay, so go in, find your group, and do you guys know where to find your groups? Okay. Go to your front page and you come down here to resources and you click on groups.
What food is it about?
Hmm?
Why did you look at the phone?
I still don't hear you, I'm sorry. I still don't hear you.
Why are they trying to do this for the food?
Oh, I have no idea. I guess because it was the best alternative. So here's your groups. You are either in Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, or Ravenclaw, and there are 2 groups of each. When we're all back together, it's going to make a lot more sense. It's going to be a lot easier to do this, but here we sit. So this is where you find your group at. It's in under resources and under US 11 groups. Jane, yeah, I'll have to put you in one. Take,
Yeah. I'm a Slytherin.
are you actually Slytherin? I was going to put you back in Slytherin. So you're Slytherin 1, you're Slytherin 2. All right, so on this, originally it was going to be a group project, but because of the messy cohorts and all of that, it's way more trouble to do it as a group than it is if you just did it by yourself. So you can do this by yourself. Yes, yes, that's it. Probably will work out better for you if you do it by yourself. So if you are Slytherin 1, you are doing the Department of Labor and the creation of the Department of Labor. There is a document right here. That has all the information that you need to find, and then you create a poster for it. Yep. So if you are Department of Labor, you go down here to find, where is it at? There it is. Department of Labor, who it is / what it is, and then tell us the causes and the effects of it. So what caused the Department of Labor to be created? What effect did that creation have? Then you are going to make a poster. So you don't technically have to fill this out, but this is the information that you need on the poster. Yeah, your actual poster is going to have the who and the what, so who or the what, the when it was created, which is on there, and then why it was created, the causes of that, and then the effects of that. Does that make sense? And I think it said 2 pictures. Yeah, 2 pictures would represent your topic. Does that make sense? Any questions? Everything is due October 16th at the moment, so I can't really say. I would say do it, and turn it in on not Monday after fall break, but the one after that, but I can't say that. So yeah, you have all fall break to work on this. If you want to draw the pictures, I'm fine with that. If you want to print them out and do it, that is fine. If you do this online instead of on paper, it's got to look absolutely gorgeous. Okay? Since all of you guys are technically traditional, you can do it on paper and bring it in.
So can it be on like a regular, like not like blank paper, but like?
Yeah, it can be on like a piece of like not cardboard paper, like construction or printer paper, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As long as it's got the information and all that and it looks pretty and neat, I'm here for it. I need some stuff to go on my wall of fame. Because I only have like 3 pictures up there right now. Yeah. Very sad wall of fame right now. Yeah, that was the box that the spiders took over. It had all of my old posters and everything in it. They're in my attic. They're brown recluses. And I ain't playing with them.
I think my brother has all staff.
I don't do bugs that fly. I'm okay with snakes. Snakes I'm cool with. But me and snakes, we're good.
I'm not okay with none of that.
You're not doing none of it?
No, I think I'm okay.
When I start hearing like a buzzing noise, I'm like,
Y'all almost wrecked because I had a wasp in my car one time.
I was in public,
Which,
and the wasp was like all over my face, and I was like, oh shoot. When I went up on the sidewalk, it's kind of like this, and it's manual. So it was the first gear, so it was, and I was like, I don't know. Everybody thought it was crazy, probably. I don't know.
I mean, if it comes down between me crashing or getting stung by a wasp, I'm really ashamed to say that I'm gonna take the crash.
I got stung in the ear by a
Yo, When me and my husband were looking for houses, this has been a few years back, we went to, there is this really kind of nice neighborhood, but it was an older house, and there was this like wreath up on the door, and as we were about to walk in there, my husband's like, I think I hear some buzzing. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And he's like, why don't you go on through the door first? I said, that's so sweet. Thank you. That's so gentlemanly. I got stung 4 times at once by the wasps that had populated that wreath. And then he knew they were in there. What a gentleman.
You made him sit on the couch.
There was a wasp nest that was a red one, and we were trying to fire check it. And mom got mad because it was like cracking the wasp. We put like 4 fires in.
I'm like deathly terrified of spiders.
There was wasps in there.
It was like 4 o'clock in the morning and there was a spider in my window. I was so like sleep deprived and everything that I like killed it with my hand. And then I realized what I did and I was like upset.
Look, I don't mind spiders.